To know what it feels like to be powerful, you need to understand what it feels like to be powerless. Do you remember your first day at school? I definitely remember mine. The loud corridors, children's feet slamming on the ground, the echoing corridors, not quite knowing where I was going next, the teachers' voices above my head, wah, 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 wah. I don't really remember what happened in the morning, but I definitely remember what happened at lunchtime. They put this plate of food in front of me, and I looked down. Grey, grisly meat, congealing gravy, indistinguishable vegetables, a slop of mashed potato. So I made my way through the first course. That was okay. And then it was pudding time. They put this round bowl of this white viscous matter in front of me with a blob of something red in the middle. And I looked down and I thought, what's that? But I thought, right, come on, Antoinette, let's do this. Picked up my spoon, took the first mouthful, and I thought, there is no way I'm going to swallow that. That's disgusting. And so I thought, well, what am I going to do? The only thing that I could do is to pick up the green beaker in front of me that had water in it. And I spat it out into the green beaker, put it down. And I just sat there, dumbly, until a teacher came over and looked down. What have you done? That's disgusting! And 5 pairs of eyes, the children who were sat on the table with me, looked at me. And I sat there, dumbly. You see, this was my first day in an English-speaking school, and up until that point, I'd been brought up by my mother to speak only French and eat only French food. So this atmosphere and this food and everything was completely alien to me. And I didn't have the words to explain myself. I didn't have the words to defend myself. I felt completely powerless. Our experience of power starts at a really young age. Those moments or invitations to either control or be controlled. And there are many times in our lives when we feel powerless. In the playground, there are power dynamics around who's the fastest, who's the smartest, who's the prettiest. In relationships, there are power dynamics around who initiates, who reciprocates, who decides, who controls. In the work environment, there are power dynamics around who leads, who follows, who speaks, and who remains silent. And so this whole experience of power, I've been curious about it throughout my life. Today, I have found my voice. My voice is my business. But it's been quite a challenge along the way. It's been quite a journey. And so I've become an observer of what power is and how it shows up. In the work environment, I've seen an amazingly powerful idea build up an organization only for it to crumble at the hands of misguided leadership. And through my work with business owners, with managers, and with leaders, I've seen people underestimate their value and compromise their power as a result. And I've noticed particular challenges that women face. There was Dee, who used to blush head to toe every time it was her turn to speak in a meeting, which was caused from a manager when she was very young, being made to feel that her ideas had no worth. Research by the Chartered Management Institute has found that 69% of managers have noticed a woman struggling to find her voice in the workplace. There was Nadia, whose blood used to boil every time that harmless banter used to flip over into something a bit more uncomfortable. Research by the Chartered Management Institute has found that 85% of women have witnessed some form of inappropriate language in the workplace. And then there was Lola, whose skin used to crawl every time her manager placed his hand on the small of her back while staring down at her top. Research by Salesforce this year has found that 20% of women have experienced some form of sexual harassment in the workplace. That's 1 in 5. That's your sister. That's your mother. That's your daughter. That's your friend. That's your wife. That's your partner. And yet the world is changing. Since sometime in 2017, since the Harvey Weinstein scandal, which blew the world apart and created an avalanche of complaints about inappropriate behaviour in the workplace. Since the Me Too movement, and since gender pay gap reporting, the world is changing, and people are trying to figure out now how they're meant to behave, what's okay, what's not okay. Organisations are trying to create cultures of equality where everyone has a voice. They do women's leadership programs, and I run a number of them myself. But then what happens is that everyone else says, well, what about me? Don't I deserve a program for me too? Surely the solution is that we can all find a way of powering up together. And so as the world is evolving, what is the new power dynamic? How can we all power up to fulfill our potential? This question has been something that's been playing on my mind in my work in this area, but particularly in the research that I've conducted to go into my new book, Power Up. And I found that there's 3 ways in which power is evolving. Power isn't binary. It's not about either having power or not having power. It's not about giving power or taking it away. It's not as simple as that. Power is multicoloured. There's a whole myriad of different ways in which you can access your power. A whole spectrum of different ways in which you can be powerful. From the glow of intuition all the way through to the blazing flames of indignation. From the quiet voice of wisdom all the way through to a strongly worded command. Secondly, power is it's not about force, it's not about control, it's not about domination. You only have to look at the political debates that are going on right now to see that that kind of forceful power just doesn't work. The new power dynamic is about equality. It's about inclusion. It's about respect, where everyone has a right to an opinion. Power is about choice, because there's always a gap between when something happens or something happens to you and how you react. And in that gap is your power to choose. In that gap is the difference between either accessing and expressing the power that is rightfully yours or giving it away. So imagine for a moment someone said something to you, someone's done something to you that has deeply hurt you. It's unfair. And so your instinctive reaction might be to go into fight or flight or freeze. So you might get really, really angry. You might totally lose the plot. You might even become aggressive, or you might become incredibly upset. You might burst into tears. You might run away altogether. Or you might just stop like a rabbit caught in the headlights, say nothing, and almost invite the behaviour to continue. So instead of this instinctive reaction to when something is said to you that upsets you, that you don't like, or something happens to you that you don't like, instead of that, remember you have this gap. I call this gap your power pause. And in that pause, you can take a breath. You can step out of the situation. And you could think, what's the best way for me to respond in this moment? Which, out of the whole array of different powers do I have at my disposal, which is going to serve me best at this moment in time? And then you can act. So you might be angry. That's fine. Anger is an energy. It's an incredibly powerful force, but it only is powerful for you if you learn how to channel it, rather than just letting it engulf you. You have the power to choose. But it's not as simple as that, is it? Because there's incredibly powerful conditioning, particularly for women, that dictates how we should behave. So, as Francis Bacon said, knowledge is power. And so the more that we know about this conditioning, the more we can learn how to overcome it. So firstly, that word power, it's a very masculine word, isn't it? Hey, I'm powerful. And women, we don't really relate to that so much. And I think we're quite scared of the word power. We're quite scared of what might happen if we were to unleash it. What would happen then? And so we stay in the safe zone of power. We stay within the place where it's about influence, where it's about emotional intelligence, where it's about intuition. And we don't access the stronger, louder end of the spectrum. Number two, there's an immense amount of conditioning that still goes on when it comes to how girls should behave. So traditionally, girls are brought up to be compliant, to sit still, to not make too much noise, to play fairly. You only need to look at how the difference between toys that boys and girls are given to see how this plays out. So I was looking at the list of top toys for children on the internet the other day, and for girls are still given dolls to play with. And it's weird, because the eyes are a quarter of the size of their face. They've got truckloads of makeup on, big flapping eyelashes, tiny little waist, big boobs, and you think, how on earth could that doll, if it were human, how on earth could it do anything, let alone be powerful? So girls are given dolls, girls are given kitchens to play with, girls are given makeup to play with. By contrast, what are boys given? Boys are given cars. Boys are still given guns. Boys are given Power Rangers. And this powerful conditioning plays on through a woman's life. And so this nurturing nature that is a beautiful thing that we have means that we want to look after everyone. We want to make sure everyone's happy. We don't like uncomfortable silences. We want to make sure that everyone's working well together. We want everyone to like us. And so we prioritize likability over respect. So we don't say no. We don't call out behavior that we're not happy with. We don't upset anyone by giving them feedback that they might take personally. And so as a result of that, we compromise our power and we compromise the respect that people have for us because they start to take us for granted. And so, very powerful conditioning that keeps us in this small place. So how can we overcome this? The turning point for me came as a result of a number of those power pauses where I chose, instead of letting whatever was happening happen, instead of keeping my mouth shut, I decided, no, enough is enough. I'm going to speak my truth. If I need to, I'm going to walk knowingly into conflict. I'm going to give my views. I'm going to say what I want to say. And I will do that with strength. So what next? What next with this new power dynamic? How can we all power up so that we can all fulfill our potential? My message is simple. If you're a teacher, a carer, a parent, allow the life force within your young people to flourish. Listen to them. Give them the time to speak. Allow them to experience this whole range of different powers that they have bubbling up within them. If you're a manager, a leader, a business owner, create cultures and environments where everyone's voice gets heard. For the rest of us, let's make the most of this amazing opportunity that we've got to all become powerful together. So it's not about one person having it and another person not having it, so that we can all fulfill our potential and so that we can all become powerful. And to the women out there, let's tune in to our inner power. Let's smash through our own glass ceilings. I want you to know that you have more power within you than you ever thought possible. More wisdom, more resilience, more strength. This isn't about putting your big girl pants on. This isn't about manning up. This isn't about growing a pair or any of those expressions that I hate. This is about tuning into your own inner voice. This is about becoming the most impactful version of you. This is about becoming the most fabulous version of you and letting that be seen. A lot has changed for me since that first day at primary school. I've found my voice and helped countless other people to find theirs. I know you will too.